In this video we're going to explore directed number. This is another way of saying adding and subtracting involving negative numbers. Now I'm going to start at the beginning so that you get the idea of how numbers and on the number line we can use directions to answer these questions, and I've started with a nice easy sum that hopefully we all know the answer to. 3 add 4 equals 7. So the number at the front, 3, is going to tell me my starting position, and I'm going to need a glamorous assistant now to help me out with this on the number line. So in pops my robot friend there. He's going to start at 3. Because it's an add, he's then going to turn and face the adding direction, which you can see on your screens points that way, and he's going to move forwards 4 spaces. And then where he ends up on 7 corresponds to my answer there. So hopefully you've seen how we can use these simple sums as directions to actually end up at an answer. Let's have a look at one involving negatives. A couple of things to notice about this. First of all, when I write a negative number, I make sure it's enclosed in brackets so that I don't get confused with the negative sign and a takeaway sign. And I'm also not calling these minus numbers. These are negative numbers because, again, minus is another word for takeaway and it can lead to some confusion. So this is 3 add negative 4 equals negative 1. So let's look at this the same way. I'm going to need my little robot friend to start on 3 like in the previous example. Because again this one is an addition, he's going to turn and face the adding direction. There he goes. And I've got to be careful now. Because this is a negative 4, he's not going to move forwards 4 spaces, he's actually going to move backwards. He's going to moonwalk back 4 spaces. And when he moves back, you should see that the answer to this sum, where he ends up on, is negative 1. Again, even though it's my answer, still in brackets, and still calling it a negative rather than a minus. In this second question, I've got 3 take away negative 4, and I'm suggesting that the answer to this is 7. So let's look at this one. If I stick my little robot friend on 3, and this time he's going to turn and face the other direction because it's a takeaway, so he's going to need to turn and face the subtract direction, which he has done, and it's a negative 4. So instead of moving forwards 4 spaces, he's going to do the same thing again. He's going to moonwalk backwards 4 spaces, and hopefully you can see that he's ended up on the correct answer there of 7. So 3 take away negative 4 gives me an answer of 7. In this example, I've actually given you 2 negative numbers and we're going to subtract as well. Some people see this as the most difficult combination with negative numbers, but I think if we stick to our principles of thinking of it as a direction on the number line, we can still do this one just as easy as the first couple. So, to start off with this one, I've got a negative 3 at the front, and this is going to be my starting position. So my robot volunteer is going to appear on negative 3. It's a takeaway, so he's now going to turn and face the subtract direction. And got to be careful here, it's a negative 4, so instead of moving forwards 4 spaces, he's going to slide back 4 spaces, and hopefully you can see that he ends up on 1, meaning the answer to negative 3 take away negative 4 is a positive 1. Here are some examples for you to have a go at. I'm going to talk through these, but if you want to pause the video here and have a go yourself, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, so the very first one, 2 plus 5, should be no trouble here, that's 7. The second one, negative 2 plus 5, is actually fairly straightforward. I'm going to start on negative 2 and just move 5 spaces forwards in the add direction, giving me an answer of 3. The next one, 2 plus negative 5, have to be a little careful here. If I start on 2, turn to the add direction, but then move backwards 5 spaces, I end up at negative 3. Again, my negative numbers are kept enclosed in brackets. Negative 2 plus negative 5, I'm going to start on negative 2, I'm going to turn and face the add direction, but then move backwards 5 spaces, giving me negative 7. Moving over to the other column now, looking at takeaways, 2 take away 5, again hopefully there's no trouble here, is negative 3. Negative 2 take away 5, again isn't that difficult. I'm going to start at negative 2 and just move 5 spaces backwards, is negative 7. And then 2 take away negative 5, I'm going to start on positive 2, turn and face the subtract direction, and then slide backwards 5 spaces, putting me on positive 7. Negative 2 take away negative 5, I'm going to start at negative 2, I'm going to turn and face the subtract direction and move backwards 5 spaces, leaving me on positive 3. Here are some questions for you to have a go at. These questions all involve one negative only. Take care with these, pause the video here, hit play when you're ready for me to go through the answers. Okay, some solutions to this then. The first one is -2, and then -3, 12, 1, -9, -7, 17, and 0. Be careful on the last one. People sometimes get confused when you end up actually on a 0. If I've got 3, I turn to the add direction and then move backwards 3 spaces, I end up back at 0. Here are 8 questions for you to have a go at. Be careful with these. These ones involve 2 negatives. There's a mixture of adding and subtracting as well. Pause the video here, hit play when you're ready for the answers. Okay, some solutions to these then. So the first one is -8, -6, +6, -2, 1, -9, 0. Again, be careful with this one. Like in the previous example, if I start on -3, turn to face the subtract direction, and then move backwards 3 spaces, I'm going to end up back on 0. And the final one is -6. In this final question, I'm going to take the idea of directed number and expand it slightly to include some algebra. So here you can see some sums, and they all have x's in them, or unknowns, variables. So -3x plus -5x, and we need to consider what the answer of that is going to be. Before we start doing any of these, I'm going to add in this. I know that -3 plus -5 is -8. I know that 4 take away -2 equals 6. I know that 2 plus -8 equals -6, and I know that -3 take away -5 equals 2. That's just looking at the numbers and the directed number aspect of this. Adding in the x's doesn't change it that much. Pause the video here, have a go at this one yourself, and I'll talk you through the answers in a minute. Okay, so the very first one then is going to be no different to what we've just looked at in the number example. -3 plus -5 equals -8, so -3x's plus -5x's is going to give me -8x's in total. 4 take away -2 equals 6, so 4x's take away -2x's is going to give me a positive 6x's. And I'm using these number facts all the way through to support me with the unknowns. So 2x plus -8x is -6x, and -3x take away -5x gives me a final answer of 2x, positive 2x. Well done if you got all of the questions in this video correct. Directed number is a really key skill that you will need to master, not only for grade C but for the higher level grades as well. Thanks for watching.